Welcome to Beyond the Valley, a CNBC tech podcast with Arjun Kharpal and Tom Chitty.
Hello, Tom here. You're about to hear the third and final podcast we recorded at Web Summit a few weeks ago. In this episode, we spoke to two leading voices bringing AI into music and film and what that means for the future of the creative industries.
Beyond the Valley.
AI has the potential to disrupt countless industries, but there is one which is feeling that disruption already. Artists, filmmakers, musicians, and content creators are working out how to navigate a creative future with AI, and many of them are not happy about it. But as the emergence of generative AI tools continues apace, there is also lots of excitement around a future augmented creative industry.
Beyond the Valley.
Let's introduce our two guests. Shara Senderoff is a tech entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and co-founder of Gen, an AI text-to-music generation platform, which it says allows you to make music with your mind. And Anastasis Germanidis is co-founder and CTO of Runway, an AI video generation platform that it says is building the next era of art, entertainment, and human creativity. Shara, Anastasis, thank you for joining us on Beyond the Valley.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Before we get into it, we're going to do stat of the week. So Arjun, if you'd like to give us the stat.
Yeah, so I'm just going to do it in a different format, a little sentence. So here we go. In a survey of US consumers, 70% of respondents said what? We'll come back to it at the end.
We'll come back to it at the end. You can have time to think about it. If you drift off and you're just a little bit bored, then you can think about the start of the week. Let's first give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about your companies. Shara, let's start with you. Explain us a little bit about Gen.
So Gen is a generative music platform, allows anyone to create a song. Any song they have in their heart, they can type to music. We are ethically trained. So on the topic of artists and musicians and filmmakers and creatives who are concerned about their data being taken to train models, we have licensed 100% of every note that has been trained within our models has been licensed. And that's a really important point at this point, because we're at this inflection moment where, as we work in AI, and we know this, this is going to change the way film is made, music is created, and the platforms need to be done in a way that respects creatives and that allows for creatives to collaborate with these tools. These are not things that are going to take over. They're not things that are going to remove or eliminate them. If we build tools that can enhance and transform the way they do what they do, we can superpower the greatest creatives that we know. And so at Gen, we're working directly with artists. It's a huge part of what we do to create products that innovate and allow them to participate and monetize, which is a big opportunity in the space for creatives to be super involved in the things that we're building.
And Anastasis.
Yeah, so Runway is a full-stack AI kind of applied research company. So we do a lot of research in kind of a video and image generation techniques. We deploy them into kind of, a large suite of creative tools that leverage those models. And then we have also a large community of artists and creators that are using those tools to make films, to tell stories in ways that were impossible before. So video generation and kind of the generative models in general are going to really change how fast we can tell stories, how fast we can create, kind of the latency from having an idea to actually turning into an output is kind of dramatically decreasing. And so a lot of what we do is think through how do we not just do the model development and kind of build those tools, but actually how do we support artists that are kind of embracing this technology and embracing those models.
So let's just kick off this conversation a bit high level and we'll dig into it a bit more. Why do music and film need AI? What's wrong with human creativity alone? Shara, we can start with you.
I'll say nothing is wrong with human creativity. I think that technology just can enable us to do create more magic. And I know Anastasis speaks about this a lot. It's if you can utilize these new platforms to create things that your mind could have never created, or technology from a filmmaking perspective or a musical instrument perspective could not allow you necessarily to create a sound or create at that speed. You're changing the space with which you create, which opens your mind to new things. So it will evolve from a music perspective. It will evolve what we know as sound, which can be an incredibly cool thought. It doesn't mean that the music created today is not incredible. It absolutely is. I think these are opportunities, especially in music. One of the things I always talk about is the world doesn't need an excessive amount of more music. It's not like we're at a loss for music, but what we need is the ability for the best creative minds to evolve and enhance the way that they create that music so that it will evolve in the sonic landscape in a way that it has in history. Now it's just going to take a monster quantum leap forward.
Yeah, so to go back to your question, like human creativity is still at the very center of it. Like the goal of the tools that we build is really to empower people to make things faster, to really turn ideas that would traditionally require a lot of resources to actually turn into reality, to be able to do that in kind of the span of like days, not months. So from our perspective, like using those tools as kind of similar to like previous generation of tools, has its own learning curve. It's also that not everyone is kind of as good as kind of everyone else at using those tools. There is still like taste and talent and vision really matters, but what those tools enable is that kind of speed of iteration and speed of kind of turning ideas into outputs much faster.
And I think as consumers are getting more attuned to hearing about large language models and AI models, etc., you mentioned something interesting, Shara, about sort of working with artists to use material to train these models as well. How is that process? How are you doing that? And is this through commercial partnerships with record labels or individual artists? Just walk us through some of how you're creating this model that then can go on and produce music.
So like Runway, we are incredibly research driven. We've actually launched only a few months ago, but we've been around for 3.5 years. So we've been developing a progression of the evolution of the sound and then what products can be built on top. Music is incredibly complex from a rights ecosystem standpoint. It's probably the hardest one to be able to navigate. If you don't have experience in music publishing, you're not going to be able to navigate how to license this material and who ultimately the attribution can go back to and how different layers of the music business participate, whether it's a music publisher, a record label, or an artist. We're working across every level. I've been in the music business for the last 10 years at all different areas, moving them forward, technologically, speaking at you name it, with individuals and with companies, focusing on blockchain, AI, what's coming and how it will evolve the music industry. So from that perspective, we're at every level, and the relationship between how we work with a record label, how we work with an artist is slightly different based on where they sit within the ecosystem, but remains the same. We're here to create monetization opportunities where they participate. So for example, one of our patented products that we'll bring to market in the next couple of months is something called the style filter, which we are announcing with Imogen Heap. And that allows us to take the style and sound of a particular artist's individual song, train on one song, and apply the infusion of that style into a user's prompt. So they can create a song, put in the style of their favorite artists and producers, and those deals are done either with the artist if they're independent or if they're in the ecosystem of the music business, which could be a record label or a publisher. Those deals are done at those levels as well. So one of the things that I've been hyper focused on is architecting new licensing frameworks with the publishers, with the labels, and with the artists directly, so that it respects the history of how the economics and the rights ownership is structured within music, but it allows us to go to the next step, not be hindered because our licensing is too complicated, but evolve those licensing frameworks so that they can work with new technology.
So in theory, if you're using the platform, you could say, create me a song in that, so in the style of Imogen Heap or any other artist.
And Imogen will participate in the revenue of that product, which opens a completely new revenue stream for her. And it keeps her rights intact to that song because it's not taking the composition from that track, which is an incredibly nuanced part of the technology. It's taking the vibe and style. And in the music business, the cliche, and I'm in it, so I don't judge them. I say every meeting is, if only we could capture the vibe or the style of this artist and bottle it up. So this is our answer to that, and technology and AI specifically have allowed us to do that, which is wildly cool.
We'll definitely talk about the business models because that's interesting. But Anastasis, at Runway, I think I saw an interesting partnership with Lionsgate. And so how are you working with production companies and in terms of being able to train the model and making sure, there's no falling foul of copyright rules, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so just to give some context on the Landscape deal, so that's a kind of first of its kind collaboration between an AI company and a film studio. The partnership industry has a few different components. So there is a more creative component, which is kind of working very closely with different teams within Landscape, and that could be video editors, VFX supervisors, other creative teams, to really figure out like how do you specialize the tools that we already have to really fit into their workflows? Because that meeting point between the AI tools and AI models and the kind of day-to-day workflows of artists and creatives, I don't think that's been fully solved. And in fact, we're very early in actually making those models as useful as they can be. And the second piece is more of the kind of a data piece, which is like we are building custom models on Lionsgate catalog of films and TV shows. And the main idea is that really want to fine tune the model so they can perform best for the kind of narrative specific kind of content that Lionsgate as a kind of production studio will want to make just to kind of get the best results out of those models.
For both of you, for your business to work there, you're going to need more artists or more film studios to agree to give up their music or their films. Is that something that you are seeing more and more? You've done, these initial agreements. Are there more to come?
Very much more to come on my end. I think that having come from the music industry is why I'm doing this. I also began in film, so I think that the approach of Runway is unmatched. That's how you have to do it. You have to partner with the elites of their industry, understand how they want these products to be built, design with them, not for them, with them, because then you understand exactly what they're thinking, how their workflows work, and then more of them will lean in. I think at this point in time when industries, rightfully so, are so fearful of what is AI going to do? How is this going to impact both their revenue or their process? And are these tech companies and tech entrepreneurs going to come in and just take over and not respect what the process has been and where they've come from? When you treat them as partners and you evolve your technology with them, they lean in and they pay attention. If you do the reverse, where you either, in my case, take their music or just come in and inject a model or a user experience that you think works without taking them into consideration, they rebel, rightfully so. Because why else would we be here if not to build tools for the greatest creatives to evolve their creativity?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I see one of our most important roles actually to demystify this technology, to showcase both the capabilities and the ways in which you can really empower creators, but also show the limitations, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about like what those models are capable of. I think folks that might not have actually kind of used those generative models might think that you type in a simple prompt and you get back a movie, and this is not how it works in practice. You need to be involved in you need to make kind of creative choices in every step of the way. So building those relations with the film studios is very much mutually beneficial. It's not just kind of showing them the tools that we already have, but actually evolving the tools based on their feedback. And that's there is a lot of AI companies that are working on interesting kind of research and image and video generation, but very few of them are actually taking kind of that step towards meeting kind of creatives where they are. Having a creative team in-house that can actually speak the same language and would use the same workflows and build tools that they want to use, because that's the first step to actually be able to understand where that would fit in their workflows, versus just delivering a model and hoping that it's useful.
Sure, just on the music front, when it comes to publishing rights and the deals that used to happen, and also artists not necessarily making money or feel like they've made tons of money on selling their music, but that music has suddenly become increasingly valuable. And I imagine it's going to disrupt the business model that exists at the moment, whereby artists are probably thinking, well, actually, I don't want to do a deal with a publisher, a music publisher. I want to keep hold of that music and do several deals with companies like yourself.
Yep. The landscape of monetization for artists has been evolving. AI will be the inflection point with which it accelerates at speeds of light, because it will show new creators. It's one of the things that we kind of touched on earlier, but the beauty of Runway and what we're doing at Gen is that someone who has never had the skill set to make music or to make a film or to make anything motion or graphics now has the ability, just by thinking within their mind, of what they want it to look like. So the empowerment of the new creator is going to open up a completely new sector of artists and producers and musicians in my field of music, where they'll now walk in and they won't even think, oh, I need a record label deal, because they don't know that that's how it was done. They just were like, I made my music on this platform, I made my art and my music video on Runway, and now I put this out into the world on YouTube. Where does the record label fit into the process now? They won't even understand the traditional structure of the music industry. Now, that's not going to happen overnight, but will it happen over the next 5 years? Absolutely. So I think the education and the barrier to entry of the music business specifically is incredibly complicated, and this will just abolish those gatekeepers from being able to have control over the next generation.
So Shara, does that put the power back? Because as Tom was alluding to, one of the things that's happened with the internet and streaming is many artists feel they're not getting fairly compensated for their work. Does this technology put some of that power at least back into the hands of the artists in terms of then being able to generate revenue again for themselves? And what does that business model look like? And just tacked onto that question, what is then the role of the record label if that power shift is happening?
So it's going to get really interesting, and there's a lot of branches to answer that question. Within music, you could take the creator who creates a song, and then you could say, okay, if that's a new person who now says, okay, I'm going to make my music videos here and I'm going to distribute them here. That creator might also say, I'm going to have an avatar of myself in the metaverse, and I'm going to distribute my music as a digital collectible in a virtual gaming experience. The distribution model is going to change significantly to the point where, yes, they can charge in micropayments and totally new methods for monetization, including touring and performance. So that's one of the things that the music business is built. The financial incentive is really built on touring. So like you mentioned, there's not a lot of money necessarily to be made in streaming. So now it's, well, can I go on the road and tour? That's where I make a vast majority of my money. But if you are someone who doesn't play instruments, then in the past that had been, well, you don't really have a show. You don't really have something. What tour are you going to take on the road? If you can't perform live, you don't really have a path to make money. But now virtual performances and performances as digital avatars are going to enter the fold. What's interesting, without getting into the depth of it, is I believe that AI is just the other side of the coin to the metaverse. A lot of people said, oh, the metaverse is dead now that AI came in. It's really that AI enables the metaverse. And so these larger digital experiences are going to enable the use and the scale of a lot of the content that's being made on both of our platforms. There has to be a space for this all to go. It's not always going back to the screen or back to the radio. Like, it's not that I make a movie on Runway and it's going through the box office and being distributed in in real life, or that my distribution strategy is to put my song on the radio. There will be a ton of new places.
But that's also predicated on someone figuring out a good metaverse experience, which to date hasn't been great.
I think there won't be one. The metaverse is just the evolution of the internet. So I think it's just like, I wouldn't say I'm building an internet. It's just the internet. I think the metaverse is a collective of experiences, and they will pop up very shortly, similar to how generative AI is now having its moment.
And Anastasis, from your perspective, in terms of the business model of the film, we look at the credits at the end of the film, an incredible number of people required. You think about some of the budgets of these movies as well, when they need to do amazing special effects or have crazy locations. What does AI, generative AI, bring or change about the movie business?
One thing that I think we're going to see more and more is small teams being empowered to make films that traditionally require much larger budgets. And we see that, like, even kind of at the early stages, even before generative models, like AI enabling kind of smaller teams to make films that had really compelling visual effects. So, for example, the film Everything Everywhere All at Once had a VFX team of like around 10 people, compared to traditional big budget films that had similar like visual effects that are kind of similar in quality, that have like thousands of people working on those effects. So that's gonna that trend is gonna continue at an even larger scale with generative models. So you're gonna see individuals, you're gonna see small teams that are able to create really, really compelling, like high-end kind of production value quality, like films. So I think that's one thing we're gonna say. I also do think there's gonna be different distribution of like strategies and like formats in which the outcomes of those models will end up. One thing we're particularly excited about is as those models get closer to kind of real-time generation. Like right now, to use Runway, you need to depending on the model, you need to wait something on the order of from 20 seconds to a minute to get back an output. The moment that becomes real time, then you enable all kinds of interactive experiences to take place with, and it becomes more of a rendering engine or an interactive kind of world engine. And then you have kind of intersection with more gaming, more kind of interactive media. Generally, the way we approach things at Runway is like we actually give every person on the team a book that I really like. It's called Greatness Cannot Be Planned, and it basically states that it's very difficult to predict how new technology is going to change, like the way we create, the way we work, but it's easier to predict that it will have a meaningful impact, and it will transform kind of how
the generative, real-time generative world is a fascinating. I know the gaming industry, as you mentioned, has been talking about it for a long time, and it's kind of one of these amazing kind of goals where all of a sudden the game can change in real time as you play it, which of course is for gamers, especially like myself, that's a cool idea. But how far away is that? Is that something that can somehow be applied to film too, or not? It's more in the realm of gaming.
Yeah, so my sense is we're gonna see a spectrum of different experiences, from experiences that are fully there is no kind of involvement by the viewer or the consumer, to experiences that are maybe closer to games. But there is a whole space in between of stories that might require some interaction, that might change the outcome of the story. And then you have the more kind of real-time game experiences where, like, imagine being able to essentially prompt for the world you want to create, and then kind of generate a game that kind of fits what you want to play at a given day. And like, I think it's a kind of really incredible sort of experience that are waiting to happen from that.
So obviously attractive from a cost-cutting perspective. There are lots of people involved in making an album or a song, music producers, and other roles within the graphics team or special effects, which are going to get cut with this. So how do you sort of win the hearts and minds battle with an industry which is most likely going to be quite protective of the people that work within it?
I think you build with the creatives, because they're not going to be replaced. And like we just talked about, it's about demystifying what is happening here, because it isn't that they're going to be replaced. It's just like any other technology. If you lean into that technology, you as an individual will evolve your skill set. You will become more valuable. You'll become more efficient. And so a lot of I have friends that are animators and visual effects supervisors, just like I have music producers and artists. And when they lean into these things, it evolves them and their roles. It doesn't take them away. It simply makes them more efficient, so they could potentially have another hour at home with their kids, or they can take time for themselves, and then therefore their mind can become more creative. So I think that the negativity and the fear is very normal, and we have a lot of empathy and compassion for it. I think it requires the right companies and the right leaders to speak to how much it will enhance and improve the world, more so than eliminate the amazing talent that has come to even allow us to be in this moment where we could build these types of platforms. We had to acknowledge and know that there was a whole industry and decades before us that led us to be compelled by this content, moved by movies, changed by songs. And I think if you keep that in your DNA as a company in AI, you'll make a better future.
Do you think the barrier then is the power of celebrity? Because there are a lot of powerful celebrities, whether it's in film and music, that aren't happy about it. They've, put their name to statements having concerns about AI in music and in film. So you kind of have to win them over to get that message across, to be able to say, look, it's going to be okay.
That's why, at least from my perspective in music, we have started there. Everything is 100% licensed, and artists participate in everything that we do. We are built on ethics. So coming from the industry, there was no world that I was going to build a company that wasn't built with them. So for us, every ounce is licensed, and therefore it's a different narrative with a lot of artists and creatives. But I understand why the fear is there. For artists, a lot of people say to me, oh, so AI will take away their livelihood and their money. And I was like, if you look closely, an artist and a creative, they really don't care about money. What they care about is their heart and soul being taken, because they put their heart and soul into the music that they made. So if you're stealing their music to train your models, you're stealing their identity. So no wonder they're upset, because this was all they had. It's not like they're necessarily looking for payment. They're looking for it to not be done in that way. So I think this is a very sensitive area, and I think it requires a lot of conversation and a lot of consideration and compassion for how technology is evolving the hearts of a lot of the people in this world.
To you, Anastasis, is it something where you have to win over actors, directors, the people that we see up on stage at award ceremonies?
Yeah, so I think it's a continuing conversation. It's, again, like, as I mentioned, a lot of like what we're trying to do is to demystify the technology, because there's a lot of kind of misconceptions about what the technology can do, or like the role of the artist with using those technologies. I think the history of art and technology are deeply intertwined. So we've seen similar conversations happening at the arrival of photography, and like what does that mean for painting? Like we had similar conversations with film, with the recent tools like Photoshop. Like what is the role of like visual artists when you have a tool like Photoshop that can really like kind of changes how you make visual content. And in each of those cases, we actually see an expansion of who's an artist, an expansion of the kinds of jobs that exist. At some point we had the orchestras inside film theaters that were kind of playing kind of the soundtrack of the film. But then a lot of those jobs moved towards being sound engineers that are working on the sound of the film. So I think there's definitely going to be a shift. Like there's no question about that. Like not every job is going to remain the same. But I think we're overall going to see an expansion rather than contraction of kind of like what kinds of artist job exists.
And Anastasis, how far are we from being able to generate a whole movie with AI, including the actors, and effectively and done very well?
So
feature length.
So one question is, what does that workflow look like when you're generating a film? I think the way we see it is you still, like, you never want to be at a place where you just type in a very simple prompt and then get back into our film. Like you really want to express a very specific story, and that involves making a lot of decisions every step of the way. But I expect we're going to be able to create a feature-length film with Runway, with the artist being involved in kind of every shot and every decision in that process in the next kind of 1 or 2 years. I don't think we're that far.
With real actors or with AI-generated actors?
So you can even that question is interesting because one example of a tool that we recently released is called Act One, and you can have a kind of acting performance and then transfer it to another character, another generated actor. So there's the extrapolation of like what is the role of actors in the age of generative models, and I think it's easy to kind of it's easy to kind of look at kind of generative content and think that there's going to be this kind of large shift and like some but in practice we've seen like the skill of like good acting, the skill of like really being able to deliver great performance is still extremely relevant even in the context of those tools, and that's not going to go away. So in general, I think like a lot of the kind of the skill sets and the creative vision and the taste are like as relevant as ever, and even if more than before.
And share a slightly different angle here, because we've already heard AI generated full songs, allegedly from certain artists, but they necessarily weren't. They was based on sort of generative AI tools that had effectively scraped data unlicensed. So it's possible to do at this point in time. But one of the key, I guess, parts of being a music artist these days is, as you mentioned earlier, touring. You think about some of the big, concerts and tours that go on around the world with some of these big artists. If, for example, an artist decides to generate a whole song purely with generative AI, including their vocals, which were licensed fully, etc., and the fan knows that, what does that do to the live performance situation? Not a sort of avatar-based live performance, but more a stadium, an arena kind of live performance.
I think we're always going to have creatives who play instruments. And the beauty of what we're doing at Gen is we say that we're a music company that leverages AI and not an AI company that leverages music. What we mean by that is that we've built technology. So we have a product coming at the top of the year called Composer. That Composer, similar to Act One, in the music version, it allows you to take a single stem. So say you're a piano player, you play a melody, your guitar, all you can do is strum a guitar. You play your one instrument, you upload it into Gen, and Gen creates the drums, bass, guitar, piano to fill out the song. So you can effectively become a band with playing one instrument. And so the way that we think about what we've built is that it's a collaboration tool through and through. And you might be able to similarly upload your voice, hum a tune, and turn it into a song. So you're working with it so closely that we don't believe that there's a complete generation of a piece of content, a song, a track, a score that is not touched by the human. The human makes it what it is and puts their view of the world, their perspective, their ideas into it, and that's what makes it great.
Your two companies could come together and dominate the AI creative space. Is that something you're thinking about, is partnering with other companies?
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, film
Anastasis
music
is not saying a thing. Film and
I'm
music.
trying to understand the question.
Well, you're
Yeah.
you're doing AI film.
Yeah.
Shara's doing AI music. Would you partner together with a company? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be Gen, but is that something you're considering?
Yeah, totally open to partnering with companies, especially in like complementary modalities. Like our focus is really on the visual side of things.
That's actually, I think, a really important point, which is that if everyone focuses on the niches of the process and the workflows that are within those specific industries, you'll nail how these can be used as complementary tools. If I were to go have my PhDs tackle video, it would take all the years and all the amazing work that they've done to nail some of these really hard problems to solve. We're doing that for music, and you can't do that for everything. These models are not a one-size-fits-all. They're really designed specifically to address specific creative areas, unless you're a large LLM, but that, I think, requires teams to focus on their specific areas of expertise and then come together in integrations that allow for the full creative flow with the best pieces to create different pieces of whatever the output is supposed to be.
Fascinating discussion. I've really enjoyed it. I don't know about you, Arjun.
really good.
That was so interesting. And I feel like, a lot of our listeners will have learned a lot more. And the insight has been really, really terrific. So thank you so much. Before we let you go, we have, of course, got to play Stat of the Week, which, if you could remind...
So I'll just repeat that. In a survey of US consumers, 70% of respondents said what? Who
That
would like
AI
to go
will
first?
take their jobs.
The AI will take... Actually, yeah, okay. Yeah, oh, so you, Shara, you've...
Yeah.
Anastasis, your guess?
70% that they have not used an AI tool yet.
70% have said they're happy to watch and listen to AI film and music.
Those are all
Great.
good 3 guesses. Tom, you were actually the closest, but sort of also wrong.
Okay. Okay.
70% of respondents say they would rather watch a TV show or movie written by a human than one written by generative AI. That's according to a recent
sorry,
study.
guys.
But I'm not going to end it on a sour note, because actually 22% said they feel that generative AI could even write TV shows and movies that are more interesting than humans.
There you go. There you go.
So that's good news for you,
It's a
Anastasis.
false dichotomy, in my opinion. But, like,
Just
yeah.
pulled you to shreds, Arjun. I love it.
I know.
Well,
You're just sad that you lost again.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't win one of these.
You haven't won
Yeah.
one.
Well, I was close. I was
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
I liked yours. I was hoping it would be
Yeah,
that high.
I know. Well, it was close.
One
Well,
day, if they do this survey in, another 2-3 years,
Yeah.
it might be very different.
Definitely.
Exactly. We'll have
Yeah.
to get you
We'll
both
return.
back on. But that is all we have time for. Before we go, please follow and subscribe to the show, and you can even leave us a review. And if you want to contact Arjun and I, or have a question about this episode or a past episode, then email us at beyondthevalley@cnbc.com. Thank you, Shara.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasis.
thank you.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you, Dol.
We'll be back next week for another episode of Beyond the Valley. Goodbye.
Beyond the Valley.